I think once Sue and I got together, we began to feel a need to do what Sue had already done for women in relation to lesbians and gays. I don't think I'd have bothered with the Psychology of Lesbian and Gay section had it not been for the fact that Sue had the experience of being involved and having a central role in setting up Psychology of Women. So I just said, well, okay, you've done it for women, now let's do it for lesbian and gay people. Well, lesbians initially, we thought. And we had no idea of the problems that would involve. First, how few people were willing to be out as lesbian or later gay. In fact, the reason why it was originally lesbian was because only lesbians would join us. So it was myself, Sue Wilkinson, Louise Cumley, who's an educational psychologist, and Rachel Perkins, who I wrote a book with as well, who's a clinical psychologist. And it was the four of us. So it was a very small community originally. And it took us 9 years to get what was eventually the lesbian and gay psychology section, and then turned into the Psychology of Sexualities section. It was a heady time. It was very exciting. It was very impudent of us to insist that psychology needed to involve our concerns and engage with our issues. We got hate mail from psychologists. That was the days before email. We went through the list of chartered psychologists, which was a big book at the time, and we hand-addressed envelopes and put them in small batches so nobody would notice through our university mail until we mailed by hand most members of the British Psychological Society. And what we got back was the flyers that we had sent out with crude remarks written on. So we knew that they were from chartered psychologists who were members of the British Psychological Society, who were sending us abusive, sometimes religiously motivated, sometimes sexually hostile responses, anonymously, of course, about our section. I mean, we got some letters in The Psychologist were published with names under the heading, "Are you normal?" So the hostility was extraordinary, but in a sense, it fueled our sense of self-righteousness. You know, we were up against the enemy, and this is what they were doing, and it was one of those moments where you know that what you're doing is right and good and revolutionary, although at the same time you think, why bother with the British Psychological Society? You know, wouldn't we be better off going and doing something else? But you know, we were psychologists. We were members of the society. There was a Psychology of Women section. Why shouldn't there be a forum where lesbian and gay psychology, which existed now in a fully developed way in the United States, why shouldn't we have that here? And so we did it, and it took us, I think we turned it down 3 times, and we got it on the 4th occasion in 1999. And it went from strength to strength. I mean, once it existed, that's the irony. Once something exists like that, it has institutional support. It appears to be a formal, legitimate part of a discipline. People can say that they're members of a section. People can contribute to the newsletter. People have a sort of institutional base for it. It suddenly stopped being this kind of shocking, shady, disreputable thing that a bunch of lesbians had set up in kind of oppositional form. And we were oppositional. It was a wonderful time at a conference where we were refused permission to talk about why we wanted a section. And a bunch of us got T-shirts made with "Visible Lesbian" on it. And we prepared a short play, it was about 5 minutes, and we leapt up onto the stage after the speaker had been thanked, but before the end of the public events. And we did this thing about, you think there are no lesbians, but look, here we are, we're visible lesbians. Lesbians are all over the place. We need a section. And this was considered, you know, outrageous, unprofessional. We were very unprofessional.